The first step in making our cake batter is to sift our flour. You don't want to measure out the flour until you have sifted it. So I'm just going to put quite a bit of flour in there. I actually want to have more flour than I'm going to need because it's easier to measure it out if I'm not scraping the bottom. Once I have my flour in here, I find it is so much easier and less messy if I just take this spoon and I just rub it around along the bottom. It kind of does the same as if you were using a sifter where it has that metal bar that goes around in a circle. Except that this really works, and I find half the time those sifters don't work. The bar won't turn right. So I like using just a regular kitchen sieve and then using the spoon to quickly get the flour down in there. You're going to see just how quickly that goes in there. I know a lot of people will still use a sieve, but they'll sit there and hit it. And while that works and it gets it down there, it can be a little bit messy. This way, you see, I have found a bowl that this fits perfect in, and I do lift it up every once in a while to make sure that the flour is not higher than the sieve. Because obviously if the flour had gotten up to that point, this wouldn't go out very fast. So as quick as that, you can see I have put in to this bowl all of the flour. And I have basically no flour mess around that flour. Our next step is we want to measure our 3 cups flour into this bowl. When measuring flour, you need to make sure that it's a level cup. So I fill it fuller than the cup, and then I go back this way to make sure that's full, and then I just smooth that off, and then I have 1 cup. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to get my 3 cups. My flour is now measured into my bowl, and so we're ready to do the next step in making our cake. To the flour, we are going to add our other dry ingredients. We're going to add, here I have the baking powder, the baking soda, and the salt, and we're just going to dump that in there. And I'm also going to add my 2 cups of sugar. I've zested my limes. As you can see, when you start getting down to the white part, you don't want to zest the white part into it because that part is really bitter. I zested the limes until I felt like I had enough. And as you can see, this little container is pretty much full. And I guess it's probably a tablespoon, maybe a little bit more. So that should be enough limes for this recipe. The next step is I need to get some lime juice. And I like to use fresh limes. I have a citrus juicer, and I can use these limes that I've already peeled. I'm going to need 1/3 cup of lime juice. So I just cut the limes in half, and then I let the machine do all the work. I will come back once I have my 1/3 cup. And from what I'm seeing coming from this, I'm thinking that these 2 limes that I zested is probably going to be enough. I always buy a little bit more, a couple of extra limes just in case, because different limes give different amount of juice. And you never really know how much you're going to get until you juice the limes. So I will come back once I have these juiced. I juiced these 2 limes, and it actually came up exactly at 1/3 cup, so I don't need to juice anymore. The next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to combine the eggs and 1/4 of my buttermilk into a small mixing bowl. So I have the eggs in there, and now I just want to measure 1/4 of this. And since this is basically a cup, it's a little bit more than a cup. I want to get this down to about the 3/4 cup mark. So it is right there now at the 3/4 cup mark. Then I'm going to take just a little whisk, and I'm going to whisk this together lightly. I'm just whisking this together lightly. I don't want it beat up a lot. The other thing I add to this mixture, I almost forgot, is my lemon zest. Just gonna dump that right in there. Go ahead and take that off of there. Scrape this out. I want to get all the lemon zest I can in there. And then I'm just going to mix that up in here too. We are now ready to mix up our cake batter. I have my dry mixtures in here. I'm just going to turn this on low, just enough to mix up the flour and the sugar and all the other stuff. Once I have that mixed in, I'm going to add the rest of the buttermilk, that other 3/4 cup, and my 1 cup butter. Again with this, I want to start mixing this very slowly. I'm going to put this guard on. It's going to help. It's bigger than this bowl, but it still helps it. So I'm going to mix this very slowly. And as soon as I have that mixed in there, I'm going to turn this to a medium speed. And that is going to go for 1.5 minutes. This has been mixing now for 1.5 minutes. The reason we want this to go for full 1.5 minutes like this is it helps build up the cake structure. Now that I have done this for 1.5 minutes, I went ahead and I scraped down the sides. And I'm now going to take my mixture of eggs and buttermilk and that lemon zest, and I want to add this to here in 3 increments. I want to try to figure out what 1/3 of this would be, and you don't have to measure exact, just kind of eyeball it. And again, I'm going to put this shield actually goes to a bigger mixer, but that mixer broke and I don't have a cover for this one. So it does help still make it so it doesn't flash out. I now want to start this on low. And then once I see the liquid is absorbed in, I'm going to turn it back up to medium. And this is going to go for 20 seconds. Then I'm going to add the next mixture, next 1/3 in. And it will go for another 20 seconds. And then I will add the last one in, and it'll go for another 20 seconds for a total of 1 minute. So let's go ahead and start mixing this in. Okay, that's all it takes to get that in. So now I'm going to bring that up to medium speed. And I'm going to time that for 20 seconds. After 20 seconds, I will add my next dumping in. And I usually do time this pretty closely. And I'm going to add my next, which is half of what's left. And then that goes for 20 seconds. And we're going to add the rest of it. And that also goes for 20 seconds. So that when we're done, it will have gone for a full minute. I'm going to lower this now, and I'm going to take my scraper and I'm going to scrape this down. We are almost done. The only thing we have to add to this is the juice, and we add that right at the end. So it has that nice, rich, delicious lime flavor. And I want to make sure I get all of the cake batter that might not be mixed up that well off of the beater, so that with this last mixing it can all get mixed in. Adding that last lemon juice, scraping the cake batter off that. We're going to raise this back up, and to make sure this doesn't splash, I am going to put that back over it, and I don't need it really high speed. Just want to mix that in. When I can see it's totally mixed in, then I stop. We are now ready to put this into the cake pan. That is how quick and easy a cake from scratch is. Here's our 2 cake pans. We want to fill these about halfway full. We also want to try to make sure that the cake pans are about the equal amount of cake batter. So that one does not have enough, but I still have cake batter left. This one is about halfway full, so that's all the fuller I want to make that one. So I'm going to dump the rest in here, and I don't know if I'll dump it all because I don't want it too full. So I don't have to scrape it all out if I don't need it all, but it looks like that's going to be just about right. I'm now going to take these 2 cake pans and I'm going to stick them in the oven, and I'm going to cook them. I'll set the timer for 30 minutes to start with, and then after that 30 minutes I will test them, see if the cakes are done. I look at it first before I even open up the oven to see if they look done. And if they don't look done, I won't even open the oven. I will just give it another 5 or 10 minutes. Actually, if they don't look at all done, I'd give it another 10 minutes. The cake has been cooking for about a half an hour. So I'm ready to check it. To check the cake, I want to open up the oven very carefully, and I can see it separating from the edge. That's usually a sign that it's almost done. And I just want to stick a toothpick in there, and as you notice, it is coming out clean. So I'm ready to take this cake out of the oven. And this is going to cool for about 10 minutes to half an hour. You don't want it to come completely cool in the pan, but you do want it to get cool enough that you can touch the pans with your hand before you dump it out. So that's usually somewhere between 10 minutes and 15 minutes. So there's our cakes ready to come out and be put on the cooling rack. I will come back and show you what we do after these have cooled. Our cakes are now cool enough to touch. All we do is we tip them upside down and we peel this off. And then because these are small cakes, I'm able to just flip it back over like that. So I do that with both the cakes. And now we want to get these completely cool. Then I'll probably wrap them up, put them in the fridge for about a half an hour so that the butter component of the cake will harden up so that when I cut them and tort them, they will not crumble and fall apart.